So welcome students to another session of advanced surveying, and we are in the topic of aerial photogrammetry. So today we will learn a few things regarding aerial photogrammetry. Theory part, major part is covered, a few hours of theory is remaining. So today we will learn regarding ground control for photogrammetry, right? Ground control. So what does ground control mean? You can see on your screen the first point, that is locating the ground position of points which can be identified on aerial photograph. So there are certain points on the ground which needs to be identified on an aerial photograph. So those points, locating those points is called as ground control. Those can help us establish, right? Those points on the ground can help us establish the position and orientation of each photo, right? So every photo needs to be determined its position and orientation. So these ground points will help us determine the position and orientation of each of the photograph, right? Because we will be having a large area and a single photograph will cover certain small area or small part of that particular area. So we need to determine the orientation and the position where that photo is taken and where it is located. So that ground position, those ground points help us locate these photographs, right? Individual photographs in space. Okay, relative to the ground. Relative to the ground, we shall locate the position and orientation of a photograph. Okay, so the extent of ground control is determined by, you can see on your screen, you have three main points which determine the extent of the ground control that is required, right? So the extent of ground control requirement is determined by scale of the map, right? Whatever is the scale, if you have a larger scale, then you need higher control, higher ground control, right? If the scale is, if the area that you need to cover is very large. Right. Similarly, depending upon the navigational control, whatever how you want to navigate through that particular area, depending upon the navigational control, you can decide how the ground control has to be performed, right? So this is the second point. Coming to the third point, cartographical process. So cartography is the study of maps. Cartography is nothing but the study of maps. So depending upon the cartography process, how you want to process that particular map, depending upon that, you can decide the extent of ground control. So this is an important theory question with respect to your exam point of view. So ground control, they will usually ask a theory question on. So you have to write down what is meant by ground control, how you decide the extent of ground control, what is the importance, right? And a few more details which we will get into now. Okay, so the general concept of ground control, I hope it is clear. So moving on into details. Moving on into the details. So ground survey for establishing the control can be divided into two parts. So ground survey that we do for establishing the control points, right? That can be divided into two parts. That is, the first part is basic control. Second part is called the photo control, basic control and photo control. So we shall look into these in detail now in these two parts. Okay, coming to basic control. Basic control consists in establishing the basic network of triangulation stations, traverse stations, azimuth marks, and benchmarks, etc. So whenever you want to establish certain benchmarks in that particular area or nearby your area, you want to establish the bearing marks, right? Azimuth marks meaning from marking the north point, right? North point, or whatever you take in the whole circle bearing, right? The whole circle bearing is also called as azimuth bearing. So whatever you measure from the north or any north marks you want to do in your field, so that will be a basic control point, right? So then if you want to have any traverse station. So what is a traverse station? I've written here a point on the traverse. A traverse is nothing but like this. It may be open traverse or closed traverse, right? It is a set of points which are joined together. So this is a closed traverse, and an open traverse can be anything, right? Whichever is not closing. A line of points which are not closing, right? This is called an open traverse, right? This is also an open traverse. So you have learnt in detail regarding traverses. Right? So whenever you have a point on that particular traverse line, so that is called a traverse station. A line on the traverse line is called a traverse station, where you place your instrument, right? Where you place your instrument and you do the traverse. So that is called a traverse station. So when you want to set traverse stations, so that is when you want basic control. Then whenever you want to do triangulation network. So if you remember in your previous semester, you have learned regarding whole to part, right? Whole to part setting covering a area in whole to part manner, right? Whenever you have a large area to cover, what you do, you first set triangulation points on the outer side, right? So these parts which I am marking here are the outer points which are marked with higher precision and accuracy. Then what you do, you set internal points which are not very important, but they are important, but they cannot, if you want, you can reduce your accuracy and precision over here, but the outer points are to be marked with higher precision and very accurately. Then you mark the internal points, right? And similarly you go on dividing your particular area into triangles. So this is called as triangulation. If you have studied this in your previous semester, right? Working from whole to part, right? Dividing your area into number of triangles and then doing the triangulation. So this is called as triangulation, and these points are triangulation stations, right? So when you want to establish these triangulation stations, right? And when you want to establish benchmarks, azimuth marks, and traverse stations, that is called as basic control. Consists in establishing azimuth marks, benchmarks, triangulation station, traverse station. Okay, so this is meant by basic control. So this is your first, which is coming under ground survey or the ground control which you are establishing. It consists of basic control, and then coming to photo control. Photo control. So photo control consists in establishing, you can see it consists of establishing the horizontal position or elevation, okay, horizontal position or elevation of the images of some of the identified points on the photo with respect to the basic control. Okay, with respect to basic control, what you do, you establish horizontal position or the elevation of certain points, right, of certain points identified on the photograph on the ground. So those are called as photo control points. What photo control points are? It consists in establishing the horizontal position or the elevation of images of some of the identified points on the photo with respect to the basic control. Right. So in photo control, right, we have two more these things, right? Two methods in photo control. That is post marking method, and the second is pre marking method. So we shall get into these two methods. Before that, we shall cover this point. Very important. So each of these control introduces horizontal control as well as vertical control, right? Each of your control, it may be basic control or it may be photo control, right? We have two methods, right? Basic control and photo control. So each of these consists of horizontal control and vertical control. This also consists of horizontal control and vertical control. So when you are dealing with basic control, so when you are dealing with horizontal control, so it will be basic horizontal control, basic vertical control. Similarly, coming to the second part, that is your photo control, wherein we have horizontal photo control and vertical photo control, right? So in each of these parts, we have two more parts, that is horizontal control and vertical control. Right, so that is what is written over here respectively. That is, each of your part has horizontal control as well as vertical control. So entirely it is divided into four parts, right? Four parts. So basic control is divided into two parts, and also photo control is divided into two parts, that is horizontal and vertical. Okay. Then after that is out of the way, then coming to this part, that is photo control can be established by two methods. Your photo control, it can be established by two methods: post marking method and pre-marking method. Post marking and pre-marking. So coming to the first thing, that is the post marking method. In post marking method, what we do is the photo control points, right? The photo control points are selected after the aerial photography. Once you do the aerial photography, right, you take your aircraft or you take your UAV, and the aerial photography is all it is done, right? After that, you come and set your photo control points on the images. So that is what is post marking. The post here represents post, meaning later, right? After your aerial photogrammetry is done, then you come and do the marking. So post marking method, meaning after the aerial photography is done, then you come and mark the photo control points on the photograph. So that is post marking of your photo control points. Right. So here the advantage of this method is in the positive identification and favorable location of points. Suppose you have some important points, so you can favorably mark and identify those points on the image because you already have your images with you, right? You have done your aerial photography and those photographs are with you. So what you can do, you can mark and identify important points, right? So that is one advantage wherein you already have your aerial photograph with you. So photo control points are identified later after the aerial photography is done. So this is the first method which is called as post marking method. Okay, then coming to your second method. Method is called the pre-marking method. Pre-marking, which is opposite of the post-marking method, right? So it is pre-marking, which is indicating that the photo control points are previously set on the ground, right? They are set on the ground first, and then they are photographed, right? So the points which are of interest are marked on the ground first, and then the aerial photography is done. So marking is done before the aerial photography, hence it is pre-marking. Okay, so these are the two methods of doing photo control, right? Two methods of establishing photo controls. The marked points on the ground can be identified on subsequent photographs, right? So once you mark and you take the photo, those points are again marked on the photograph. So this is how you can establish photo control by these two methods, post-marking method and pre-marking method. Okay, so I hope it is clear up till now, whatever I have taught. So if you have any doubts in these parts, you can ask. Post marking, pre marking, then ground control points, and horizontal control, vertical control, then regarding basic control and photo control. So this is very important theory question for your exam. Ground explain, they usually ask in terms of explain the ground control, how you do ground control in aerial photogrammetry. So you need to write all these things, whatever I have explained till now. Okay, so I will send you the notes later on. This PPT just has some important points. Okay, so the entire notes I will send you later on, and in the exam you have to write in detail. Okay, whatever I have explained. So the PPT will consist only of some important points. Okay, so if there are no doubts, we shall move on to the next topic. Fine. Okay. So this is regarding ground control. Regarding ground control, so a few more important points regarding ground control. Okay, if the control traverse or triangulation station or benchmarks are to be incorporated in the photo control network, right? If you have an area and there are some benchmarks in your area, right? So if you want to incorporate those benchmarks or any triangulation stations, right? Any triangulation stations or any traverse station, right? If you want to incorporate those points on your photo control, what you do is you mark those benchmarks, those triangulation points, right? Or those traverse stations. What you do, you mark them with some paint. You mark them with some paint, or you put some flags on top of them, so that when you take the aerial photograph, you can easily identify them later on, and you can mark those points on your photograph, right? So what you do, you mark those important points which you want to incorporate, so that they can be later on identified on the photograph, right? So that is one important point which I have explained now. Okay, so regarding ground control, I hope it is clear. If you have any doubts, you can ask. So make sure you join on time, because what happens is if you miss the starting important point, then later on you won't be able to connect with the class. Okay, so I'll be back in a second. Just excuse me. Okay, back to your PPT. Okay, so I hope ground control is clear. Okay, so yeah, I hope you can write in exam if they ask. Moving on, very interesting concept. The next concept of stereoscopy. Stereoscopy. Very important. This is also theory. Theory part only is included here. No numericals regarding stereoscopy and parallax. So the last topic in aerial photogrammetry is stereoscopy and parallax. Okay, so first we will learn regarding stereoscopy and then move on to parallax. So stereoscopy, very interesting concept, very nice, very new concept which is included in your syllabus. Very nice and usually asked in your exam. Okay, theory. Wherein they ask you to write regarding stereoscopy, write a short note on stereoscopy and a short note on parallax. So coming to stereoscopy, before we get into stereoscopy, we will learn regarding stereoscopic vision. What is meant by stereoscopic vision? So humans have stereoscopic vision, right? So we all of us have two set of eyes, right? We have two eyes, wherein one eye sees one image and the second eye sees the second image, right? And then we usually have two eyes, but why do we not see two images and why we see one image, right? So whenever you have two cameras and you take photos, each of the camera will give us two different photos, right? But in terms of human beings, even though if we have two eyes, why do we see only one image? Can anyone try to explain this particular question of mine? Yeah, because if we have two eyes, why don't we see two images like this? Right? We have two eyes, so from two eyes, why don't we see two images, and why not? Why do we see only a single image? What is the reason over here? Yes, anyone trying to answer? Your volume is very low.
Of object.
Nihal, your voice is breaking. So why do we not see two images from two eyes, but why only single image? Okay. So because the reason is
both I will
anyone trying to
concentrate
answer?
on
Rajwal.
yes sir. Both I will concentrate on one point. Sir.
Yes, so as you have said, both the eyes will concentrate on the here. You can see a person is standing here. So both the eyes will concentrate here, and what your brain will do it will combine those two images. It will stitch them together, and what you will see is a single image, right? So the main part played here is by your brain. So even though your eyes see two different images, your brain will combine those two images, and what you will be able to see is a single image having certain depth, right? So stereoscopic vision is meant by that. So the depth perception what you get because of two images that are combined together, right? It is the mental process of determining relative distance of objects from the observer, from the impressions received through the eyes, right? That is known as stereoscopic vision. So stereoscopic vision, what it will do, it will give you a perception of depth. You can feel a 3D environment around you, right? So you can feel the depth, not just like a 2D photograph, right? Like a 2D image that you see on your screen. It will be you can have a perception of depth. That is because of your binocular vision or your stereoscopic vision. Whenever you have two set of anything, it is called as stereo, right? Stereo speakers you might have heard, wherein it will have two set of speakers, right? And then mono meaning mono is for representing one, right? Mono meaning one, and stereo meaning two. So stereoscopic vision meaning vision with having your two eyes, right? So the mental process of determining relative distance, right, or the depth of the object from the observer, right? So that is observed through your eyes. So that is known as stereoscopic vision, right? So due to binocular vision, the observer is able to perceive the spatial relation, that is 3D field of view, right? So every one of us who has two set of eyes and working set of eyes will observe or will perceive 3D view, right? 3D view. So that is because your stereoscopic vision. So what is meant by this binocular vision? Let me explain, right? So because of your two set of eyes, when both of your eyes see the single image, the combined effect will give you binocular vision, right? When your two set of eyes are the image from your two eyes are combined together, that will give you your binocular vision, right? So here you can see left eye view and the right eye view are combined together by your brain, and it will be represented as a binocular vision. right? So if you don't have one eye, what will happen is if you put a patch or if you close one eye and you try to do some work like this, you will find it difficult, right? You will find it difficult because your depth perception is lost because you are only working with one eye. The depth perception is obtained only when you have two set of eyes working together, right? So when you close one of your eye and you try to do work, you will find it difficult. So that is the importance of binocular vision or stereoscopic vision, right? So binoculars, you might have used binoculars which wherein you don't have only one lens, you have two set of lenses that are same as your eyes, right? So that will give you a magnified image or a zoomed in image, right? So that works also your stereoscopic vision. Okay, so I hope the stereoscopy and what is meant by stereoscopic vision is clear to you, and what is the importance, right? So here, the impression of depth is caused mainly due to three reasons, right? So the depth perception or the perception of depth or the impression of depth that you see, right, that you see through your eyes or what you feel that is giving depth to your image is mainly caused by the three reasons you can see on your screen. That is, the first reason is relative apparent size of near and far objects. Right, whenever you have objects which are placed near you, and when you have same object placed far away from you, you can judge by the apparent size of those near and far objects, and you can tell depth, and that is how you can perceive your depth. Right, I will show images so that it is clear to you. Coming to the second point, the effect of light and shade. So the effect of light and shade will give the impression of depth, right? So if there is no light and if there is no shadow which is occurring, it is difficult to perceive the depth, right? So the impression of depth is got by the effect of light and shade. Coming to the third point, which is giving you the sensation of depth, that is viewing an object simultaneously with two eyes which are separated in space, right? So whenever you view any object by two set of eyes simultaneously, if you view through both the eyes which are separated in space, right? Your eyes are separated in space, they are not combined, they are separated in space by certain distance. So when you view the same object, right, when you view the same object simultaneously through the both the eyes, so you will get the perception of depth. So these are the three reasons which give you the impression of depth. So let me show a few images. Right here, you can see on the left hand side, you have a dog which is very nearby to you, and the same dog of the same size if it is far away, right? With this same size comparison, with the size comparison, you can judge that this is you can have a perception of depth, right? When you have a same object which is placed nearby you and the same object which is placed far away from you, you can tell that it is far away because there is a perception of depth because of the apparent change in size, right? So this will give you the impression of depth, right? So this is the first reason. Coming to the second reason, right? If there is a light source over here, suppose if there is a bulb over here, right? So what will happen is this particular sphere will cause a shadow like this. It will cause a shadow, and this part will be having shade, right? So you can see here there will be shadow over here, and there will be shadow cast on the ground over here because of the light, right? So the light and the shadow effect will give you the perception of depth, right? So imagine if there was no light source. If there was no light source, what will be visible? Only a single circle will be visible, right? If there is no light, only a circle will be visible, like a 2D circle, right? And you won't be able to perceive that it is a 3D sphere. You will feel that it is a simple plain circle. And if there is light, you will see that it is a sphere because of the light and shadow effect, right? So this is the second reason which gives you the perception of depth. Okay. Coming to the third reason, that is because when you have two set of eyes viewing the same thing, right? So you can see here we have an object which is placed over here, and this is the eye, first left eye, which will see the object in this particular format, and your right eye will see in this particular format. So what your brain will do is it will combine these two images and will form a single image in your brain like this, right? So this will give you the perception of depth, right? So this is the main reason. Third reason which I've told you is the main reason why you experience depth in your field of view, right? So this is the main reason. The first and second reason are not very important, but the third reason is very crucial for perceiving depth, right? This is another example of light and shadow effect, right, which gives you an perception of depth, right? Suppose if there was no shadow like this, which you can see a shadow which is cast over here, if this shadow was not present, you would have felt that it is just placed on the floor, right? Because this shadow, you can see, you can perceive that it is above the floor and not placed on the floor, right? So this is the play which is caused by light and shadow, right? So this is how you can experience that experience the depth, right? So these are the few reasons why you experience depth, right? Relative apparent size of near and far objects, light effect, light and shadow effect, and viewing through two set of eyes simultaneously. Okay, so I hope these three reasons are clear, and if you have not understood any of the reason, you can let me know. Very interesting and very nice topics in your syllabus. Fine, I hope it is fine, you have understood. Okay, so then moving on to the next thing. Okay, angle of parallax, angle of parallax. So what is this angle of parallax? In normal binocular vision, that is the vision that I've shown over here, this is binocular vision. Okay. In normal binocular vision, apparent movement of a point viewed first with one eye and then with the other is known as parallax. So whenever you have like this, any image which is in front of you, right? So once you close, you have two set of eyes. If you close your right eye and you view to your left eye, you will see one image. And if you close your left eye and you view to your other eye, right eye, you will see that the image has shifted, right? The image has shifted. So that shift in the position of the image, right, that is known as parallax. So when you view from one eye, the image will be different, and the same object, if you view from your right eye, the image will be shifted. Slightly it will be shifted, right? So that shift is known as parallax. Okay, so once what you do, if you view through both your eyes, if you view from both your eyes, you will see a single image. You will see a single image. That is conversion of both of your image converge together and form a single image, right? So that is when you don't have any parallax, right? So the angle of parallax is also called as the parallatic angle, and is the angle of convergence of the two rays of vision. So let me show an image showing this angle of parallax. Here you can see we have one eye, which is the left eye E1. Okay, left eye here, and this is your right eye. Okay, and the separation between these two eyes is called eye base. Separation between these two eyes is eye base, which is the distance small b. Okay, distance small b. Okay, suppose you have an object A over here and an object B over here. If you close your right eye, and if you view to your left eye, what you will view, you can only observe the object B, right? Because the object A is hiding behind the object B. Right? So if you close your right eye and if you open your left eye only, and if you view, you'll see object B and object A will not be visible. Similarly, if you close your left eye and if you view to your right eye, you can see both the objects, right? You can see object A as well as object B. So because this shift in object or this change is called as parallax, okay? And the angle which you see here, right? This is angle of parallax for object B, and this is angle of parallax for object A. Okay, so and then one more thing, here this particular angle which you see here is called as differential parallax, and these two are angle of parallax for object A and for object B. Okay, so I hope angle of parallax is concept is clear. I hope the angle of parallax concept is clear. Right. So this image will help you understand what is meant by angle of parallax. Okay, so this is the statement which you have to write if they ask you to explain what is meant by angle of parallax. Okay, draw this image, draw this diagram, and then write down these statements. Okay, so if this is clear, we shall move on to the next topic, that is stereoscopes. So in stereoscopy, we have learned regarding stereoscopic vision. We have learned regarding angle of parallax, right? So after that, we need to learn regarding stereoscope. So what is a stereoscope? Stereoscope is an instrument used to view stereo pairs. It is an instrument which is used to view what? It is used to view stereo pairs. So what is this stereosphere? If you ask me, I will show you an image that will clear what is meant by this stereo pairs. Here you can see we have taken two set of photos, and these set of photos are called as stereo pairs. Right? These are of the same, these images are of the same locality, all of the same area. But you can see there is a slight shift. There is a slight shift of position. Right? So you can see here, we can see the entire road, but in here in the second image, you can see since the image has shifted to the right, the road is slightly cut. It is half cut. Here you can see in the parking, if you can see here, you can see this particular C parking, but here you can see here that particular parking has shifted to the left. Right. So this is nothing but image taken at a slightly different position. So this pair of photos is called as stereo pairs. Right. These photos are called as stereo pairs. Okay, so if you know what is stereo pairs, now if you want to view this stereo pairs, if you want to view the instrument that is used to view the stereo pairs is called as stereoscope. Stereoscope. Okay, the main purpose of stereoscope is what? To assist in presenting the eye the images of, so whatever stereo pairs is you have seen, right? To view this particular thing, yeah, we use stereoscope, right? So that is one main purpose, to assist us to view that stereo pairs. That is the important purpose. That is, once you view through this stereoscope, these two images will combine, right? They will combine and you will see only a single image. That is the magic of stereoscope, right? Similarly, how you see one single image from two set of eyes, right? Similarly, these two photos will combine together and you will see only a single image, right? You will see only a single natural, like the natural vision that you have. So that is the main purpose of stereoscope. Coming to the second purpose, to magnify the perception of depth, right? So if you view these photographs, simply if you view single photographs like this, how you are able to see on your screen, you won't be able to perceive the depth, right? You won't be able to feel the depth. You will see, you will see like a 2D image, right? 2D image. You won't be able to see it in the form of 3D, right? But if you view these particular images, these stereo pairs, if you view through the stereoscope, you will be able to perceive the depth. You will be feeling the 3D view, right? So that is the second purpose of the stereoscope, second purpose of stereoscope. So I hope you have understood what is meant by stereoscopes, what is their main purpose. Okay. So we have time, right? We have time. Okay. We still more. We will cover one more topic and then we shall wind up. Okay. What is this image that you see on the top? Can anyone identify what is this? What is this instrument or this gadget called as? Anyone, if you have used, you can tell me what is the name of this particular gadget. No one has used this headset. You might have heard at least. No answer. You are from the 21st generation and you don't know the latest technologies. Answer. Try to answer. Nihal. Some headset it is called, some headset. I have given you the clue. No idea. It is called the VR headset, Baba, VR headset. What is meant by VR? Can you try to tell the full form? VR headset. So this is not regarding your syllabus, but simply I am covering because it is interesting, related to stereoscopy. What is the full form of VR? VR andre ಏನು? What is the full form of VR? Here you can see we have this particular VR headset, and we place your mobile like this in your VR headset and you view. So what this particular phone will cast is, it will cast two images like this. It will cast two images, and when you view through this VR headset, you will see only a single image, because your brain will combine those two images and it will show you a single image. So what will happen is, you will feel depth. You will feel it is like 3D. You are viewing like a natural vision. So that is the magic of this VR headset. So what is the expansion, or what is the full form of VR?
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
Very good, very good. It is nothing but virtual reality. Virtual reality headset. Has anyone used a virtual reality headset? It is very, very, very nice experience. I have a virtual reality headset. I will get it to college. You can try and view. It is a very nice experience. Okay, so moving on. So this is also a part of stereoscope. It is also a stereoscope, right? It is also a stereoscope. It is called as a lens stereoscope, right? Lens stereoscope. What your phone will show is, it will show two images like this, right? Two images from a slightly different angle, slightly different angle. What your brain will do is, it will combine these two images and form a single image. And you will feel is, you will feel the perception of depth. Okay, so this is just a general example of stereoscope. Okay, coming to your syllabus, the main two types of stereoscope that we will be studying here is mirror stereoscope and lens stereoscope. Mirror and lens. So lens, I have told you, a VR headset is an example of lens stereoscope, and the mirror stereoscope will have some mirrors. It will typically have four mirrors inside it, and that will help you to view your stereo pairs. So here these two images are nothing but stereo pairs. Right? This is nothing but a stereo pair. But here we are viewing an image. In your syllabus, what we are dealing with, we are dealing with maps, right? Vertical photographs. So you will have a photograph like this of two areas which you will view through your stereoscope. Right. So very interesting concept. We will do is, we will learn these stereoscopes in the next class. Mirror stereoscope and lens stereoscope. Very interesting, very nice concepts. I'll show various images also of this, so that you will understand them easily. Okay, so with this, I think we can wind up today, and I hope you have understood today's session. I hope it was interesting and you have learned a few new things. So if you have any doubts, you can ask now, or else you can ask later on also. So you can give your attendance. So I think everyone has typed in their attendance and kept it ready. As soon as I say, you just send it, right? So that is happening because either my session is not interesting or you are hungry. Okay, so if you have no doubts and you have given our attendance, you can exit the session. Everyone give your attendance before I stop the recording. Okay. So I shall stop the recording now. I hope everyone has given their attendance.